everyone, welcome to my kitchen and welcome to another episode of Cook for Love. Today Rosie and I are going to be making a yellow cake.
Yeah.
And this is a basic cake that you can use for all your birthday parties and all the parties at school that makes great cupcakes, as well as the holidays. And with all the recipes on Cook for Love, it's something to be enjoyed by the entire family. And this cake took a while for me to get just right, and it was definitely worth the effort because it is a cake that is much nicer than any Betty Crocker mix, and it's nicer than many bakeries as well. So I hope that you take the time to make it, and I hope that your family enjoys it. And what we're going to do is, I guess, start with just going over some of our basic ingredients and what it is we're going to be doing, and then we'll get right to it.
Good.
One of the most important things that I find with cake making is the temperature of the butter. If the butter is too hard, it isn't soft enough to whip properly. But if it's too soft, it can't hold the sugar, and then therefore can't hold the air, and it won't get that nice rise. So you're going to get a cake that goes into the oven and then flops when it comes out. So butter temperature is key. And I am going to ask a favor, and that is that you please do not put it in the microwave. I know that it's a quick fix when you forgot to take it out to room temperature, but it really just, it very unevenly melts the butter. It's melted in some spots, it's hard in others.
You know what I found, Brenda, because I made that mistake, I did put it in the microwave, but what I found is take it out of the fridge, let it sit, have a cup of tea, about a half hour, perfect timing.
There you go. She can always get a cup of tea into something. So the temperature of the butter is, it's only been out of the fridge for, I would say, probably about a half hour now. So it's going to be soft enough that if you press on it, it's going to make an indentation, but your finger's not going to go all the way through. And you can bend it, but you're not going to break it. So I'm just going to take this butter and cut it into tablespoon-sized pieces and throw it in the mixer.
And while you're doing that, Brenda, I'm going to get together my dry ingredients, okay?
Great. Thank you.
In my bowl, I have the bacon mix. The recipe is on the website, and to that I am going to add the baking powder, salt, and vanilla instant pudding. So there you go. And it is important to whisk these to combine, and that's our dry ingredients. That's how simple it is.
Okay, and I just about have my butter ready, and in it goes. And what I do is put on the mixer for about 2 minutes until the butter gets nice and light in color, and then I begin adding the sugar. Now that butter was mixing for about 2 minutes, and if you look here, it's nice and light and fluffy. Now the key to cake making, and this is true for any kind of cake baking, is to slowly incorporate the sugar into the butter. Now you guys are going to think I'm crazy, but set your timer. You're going to be doing this for about 6 minutes. So it's going to be 1 tablespoon at a time, and you're going to gradually add it in so that the air can really get in there, and you're going to have a beautiful rise and a nice light cake. So I'm going to put it back down, and I'm putting this probably on like a medium speed. It's on about the 4 on a KitchenAid, which if you don't have one, I highly recommend you get one. It is really worth the investment. We're all done here. So if you take a look at this, it's really, really light and fluffy. It almost looks like a mousse.
Yeah.
And what we're going to add to this next is an egg. And I know that eggs are something that people feel you can't incorporate into the low-protein diet, but it is something that you can use in baking. You're not talking about sitting down and having an entire egg with your breakfast. You're talking about an egg going into a cake that's going to serve many people. Like for example, this particular recipe makes 24 cupcakes. So 1 egg and 1 egg yolk that goes into this, it's still only 33 milligrams of Phe, and that's something that can be incorporated into most people's diet, because my daughter has classical PKU and her tolerance when we developed this recipe was 280 milligrams. So we were able to work that in. If it is too much for you, you can always eliminate one of the egg yolks. I don't think that egg replacer is going to be something that you can use solely in this recipe. I don't think you're going to get the same results, but by all means you can play with it. And Rosie, do you mind just getting the eggs over there?
Absolutely. And Brenda, I have to confess, I forgot to take them out of the fridge on time. So
Okay.
I have put them into some warm water to bring them to room temperature because I know that is important for the recipe.
It is. Again, we're talking about ingredients all being at the proper temperature, and I always end up doing that with my eggs as well. For some reason, I always forget to take them out. But just a couple of minutes in warm water brings them right up to room temperature. So a large egg is typically between 55 and 60 milligrams, 60 grams. But because eggs are quite high in protein and in Phe, we always weigh it out on the scale just to make sure. So if you just want to crack that up.
And try not to get the shell.
Okay, and 50.
50.
Okay, so this egg happens to be a little bit smaller than many, which is why we have it on the scale. And we're going to turn on the mixer,
Do you need next?
and I'm going to add the egg. And we're going to mix that just for about 30 seconds. And that's it there. And what I'm going to do is just scrape down the bowl just to make sure everything is nice and evenly incorporated. And Rosie, while I'm doing that, do you mind just separating that egg so that we just have the yolk? And let's weigh the yolk again just to be safe because it is high in protein.
That's 17 grams.
Okay, that's perfect. So what I'm going to do is add that in and turn the mixer on again for about 30 seconds. Okay. And again, give the bowl just a quick scrape. It's always a good idea because I find that the sides, sometimes it doesn't get mixed as well. And now to this, we're going to add some mayonnaise.
Now, mayonnaise is not something that's typically used either in the low protein diet.
No, I think most people use Miracle Whip, right?
Yeah.
And you can use Miracle Whip in this recipe. I prefer mayonnaise because it has a more neutral taste. Miracle Whip tends to have a bit of a tang to it, and we just use mayonnaise in our house because it really isn't that high in
Okay.
protein.
Yeah.
And we are going to add just 2 tablespoons of mayonnaise to this. And the reason why we're doing that is in a typical cake, there are 3 to 4 eggs minimum. And we're only adding 1 with a yolk. So we're going to need to replace some of that fat and some of that liquid. So some of the fat we're replacing by using the mayonnaise, and some of the liquid we're replacing by adding a little bit more rice milk. So I'm going to just take the 2 tablespoons of mayonnaise, which we weighed out beforehand, and put that in. And again, mixer goes on 30 seconds. And we're done here.
And after each one, we scrape the bowl?
Yep. It's a good habit to get into because otherwise I find your last cupcake in particular, you're scraping the bowl and that one always comes out funny. So now if you could do me a favor and if you could go over and get the rice milk, which we've already weighed out, and that was 1 1/4 cups of rice milk or 300 grams. And I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla to our creamed ingredients. And the next thing that I'd say is important in terms of cake baking is alternating your ingredients. And what we're going to be doing here is alternating our dry with our wet. And we're going to start with the dry, and then we're going to go to the wet, and then we're going to go to the dry, and to wet and dry again. So we're starting and ending with the dry ingredients. And when you're doing it, you're going to see what happens. It actually...
It looks like a curdles, which it scared me.
You're not making a mistake. It's just what happens when you mix them. So we're mixing in our vanilla. And now I'm going to lift up the KitchenAid, and I'm going to tap that down. And what I want to do is add half of this dry ingredients that Rosie did earlier. Doesn't need to be exact. Just cut it in half with your spatula and just dump it in. Oops. And try not to get it all over the counter like I'm doing right now. And again, it does not need to be exact. So you've got about half of it in there. You're closing it down and you're going to mix it for, again, just until it's incorporated. And it's going to look quite dry, and you're going to say, am I making a cake or am I making cookies? It's okay. It'll all work in the end. Okay? And to that, I'm going to add half of my rice milk. Again, just approximate. You can free pour it. And this is where you're going to get scared and it's going to look curdled. And it's going to splash you. And if you look here, it does look fairly unpleasant, but I promise you it's all going to come back together once we add more of the dry ingredients. And I'm going to scrape down that bowl. There we go. And I'm going to take half of these dry ingredients again. and put them in. And turn on our mixer. And as promised, it came all back together again. So scraping down.
This is such a tasty cake.
I'm always the class parent in Molly's class, and this is what I send in for all the holidays. And nobody knows it's made for a special diet. They just know that they want more of it. And you know, I've even had parents request the recipe, and I'm like, you don't want to know all the ingredients that go into this. But that's what you're looking for, and that's what Cook for Love's aim is. So we're going to add the rest of the rice milk. Okay, and again, I'm going to step back because I know it's going to splash me.
And it's going to curdle again.
Yep, and it is going to curdle again. Turn that off. Scrape. And I'm going to just dump in the rest of these ingredients. And down it goes. And we're done.
And it already looks so good.
It does. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is over there, we've got 2 9-inch cake pans.
Here you go.
And again, you can make this in any size you want. You can do 3 8-inch rounds and make it even a taller cake. So now I am just gonna take the mix, and again, I'm just gonna eyeball it and put it in here. And what we've done here was we heavily greased the pan, and then we cut a sheet of parchment paper to the size of the pan, and then grease that as well, just to make sure it doesn't stick, because we can't use flour to make sure it releases. Okay, I've got the oven preheated to 350 degrees, and it's gonna go in for about 20 to 25 minutes.
Okay.
So you're gonna start to smell it, and once you get that delicious smell in your house, you know it's just about ready. So into the oven it goes. We can clean up and get a cup of tea, and we'll be back with you in a few minutes. Well, I wish you guys there was such a thing as smell-o-vision, because there's a really nice smell coming from the oven right now. And the timer is just about ready to beep for us, and I think I said 20 minutes. The cake is actually in for 30 minutes. So it will be coming out in a minute. We're going to test it and make sure it's done, and then let it cool, and then we'll decorate it in another segment. And I'm just going to take out one of these just to see that it's cooked through.
Well, it looks beautiful.
Yeah, it really does.
And it smells delicious.
Okay, I'm just going to put a knife or something through it. And it came out clean. So we're all set here. I'm going to take the other cake out. And I'm going to let it cool on the wire rack for a little bit. And then we're going to flip them over. And then once they're cooled, they'll be ready for decorating.
Yum.
We're going to do the decorating in another segment. So thank you very much for joining us today. And remember, even if you don't love to cook, sometimes you do need to cook for love. Have a good day.
Goodbye.